Welcome to Smart Wealth with Joshua.
Your daily stock analysis and catalyst talk. Today we're looking at ANVS Bio.
If you find our talks useful, please consider subscribe, like, and comment underneath to support our podcast. And if there's any stock you want us to look into, leave it in the comments section below.
So let's get into the analysis. ANVS Bio has become a really fascinating story in the neurodegenerative space. They are just laser focused on their pipeline for diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
And it all seems to revolve around one drug candidate, right? Filiseptin.
That's the one. Filiseptin, or ANVS 001. It's the engine driving.
Right. Yeah.
Everything for them.
Right. And with any biotech, it all comes down to the data. Their whole story right now seems to hinge on that phase 2B trial, the C501 study. So for anyone just tuning in, what was the single biggest takeaway from that?
The biggest takeaway was that it worked. I mean, it showed genuine efficacy that was statistically significant, not just some, marginal trend. The trial looked at patients with early Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and the primary endpoint was this thing called the ADAS-Cog11 score.
And we throw that term around a lot, ADAS-Cog11, but it's just jargon to most people. Can you break that down? What does it actually measure?
That's a great question. It's the Alzheimer's Disease Assessment Scale Cognitive Subscale. It's basically the gold standard for testing things like memory, language, orientation, really the core functions that decline.
So a better score means the patient is thinking more clearly.
Exactly. A positive change means the decline is slowed, or in this case, actually improved. And the number here was, well, it was impressive.
What was the specific number?
A 10.4-point improvement in that score compared to placebo, and the p-value was 0.005, which, is highly significant in clinical terms.
A 10.4-point swing. How does that stack up against other drugs we've seen?
It's a huge difference. When you look at some of the earlier big-name drugs, the amyloid antibodies, they were maybe showing improvements in the 2 to 4-point range. So 10.4 is considered a very substantial, clinically meaningful gain.
Okay, that's a massive data point. So that naturally leads to the next step. The FDA, they got this result in both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's patients. Is the FDA really okay with them targeting two huge diseases with a single phase 3 trial? That seems unusual.
It is unusual, but that's the major lever here for both time and value. Analysts are actually putting the likelihood of the FDA agreeing to a single protocol at over 80%.
80%? That's really high confidence. Why would the FDA do that?
Well, two main reasons. First, the science, which we can get into, suggests a common mechanism that the drug is hitting in both diseases. And second, the FDA is they're trying to accelerate things in this space. There's such a huge unmet need.
Right.
So if ANVS can show the drug works the same way by hitting the same targets, it could cut years off the timeline. It's an incredibly efficient path to market.
So let's talk about that science then. That's the real moat. We've seen giants like Biogen and Roche go after amyloid plaques. What makes Filiseptin so different?
The difference is really profound. It's what they call a dual pathway neuroprotective mechanism.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Most of the other drugs are like cleanup crews. They come in after the fact and try to, remove the amyloid garbage that's already piled up in the brain.
So they're treating the symptom, the downstream effect?
Exactly. They're dealing with the trash. Filiseptin works much further upstream. It works by suppressing the production of the toxic proteins in the first place.
So it's stopping the factory from making the garbage?
Perfect analogy. It addresses both the garbage production and the inflammation that follows. It hits multiple toxic proteins, things like LRRK2 and GSK3.
And those are involved in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, respectively?
That's right. LRRK2 is a big deal in Parkinson's pathology, and GSK3 is key to those tau tangles you see in Alzheimer's. So by hitting both, you're slowing down the core disease process in two different conditions with one molecule.
Wow. And no one else is doing this?
Filiseptin is the only small molecule drug with human biomarker data showing it can reduce all these different neurotoxic proteins at the same time. And that unique mechanism is patented out to 2037.
2037. That's a long runway.
A very long runway.
Okay, let's pivot to the money side. Great science is one thing, but you need cash to get across the finish line. How are they looking financially?
They're in surprisingly good shape for a pre-revenue biotech. As of Q1 2025, they had about $48.9 million in cash and equivalents.
And crucially.
No debt. They have zero debt on the balance sheet, which gives them a ton of flexibility.
But we've seen their spending go down. R&D burn is down 27%. Is that them being efficient, or are they, tightening the belt too much before the final push?
That's the right question to ask. Management argues it's efficiency. They're moving from big, expensive trials to the regulatory submission phase, which has different costs. Their net loss per share actually narrowed quite a bit.
So it's a sign of progress, not panic.
That's the argument, yes. And the key metric is the cash runway versus the timeline.
So where does that runway end? Does it get them past the finish line?
It does. At their current burn rate, their cash lasts until Q3 2026. The NDA filing is estimated for late 2025.
So they have enough money to file and then wait for the FDA's decision without having to immediately raise more capital.
Exactly. It manages that near-term dilution risk, which is what every investor in this space worries about.
Okay, that makes the whole picture feel a lot more stable. So let's talk calendar. What are the key dates, the triggers we need to watch for in the next few months?
The drumbeat is getting louder. First, in late July, we should see a detailed breakdown of that C501 data. Looking at the different subgroups of patients, that needs to look solid.
And then the big one.
The big one is the actual NDA submission for filiseptin, which is estimated for August 2025. That follows the FDA already accepting their pre-NDA meeting request, which is a very good sign.
August 2025 is
Yes,
really fast. How are they moving that quickly?
They're using something called the 505(b)(2) pathway. It's a huge de-risker.
Okay, you've got to unpack that for us. What's 505(b)(2)?
In simple terms, it lets them use existing safety data from other studies instead of having to run brand new, years-long safety trials from scratch. Because filiseptin is a repurposed compound, there's already a lot known about it.
So the FDA is essentially giving them a head start.
A massive head start.
Yeah.
By accepting their package under this route, the FDA is signaling they're pretty aligned with the company's strategy. It's why we're starting to see the big money move in.
The institutional money, are they placing their bets already?
Oh yeah. Q1 filings showed significant accumulation. Big healthcare funds like OrbiMed and Lemira Ventures added to their positions. And on top of that, the CEO himself bought 200,000 shares back in May.
Insider buying is always a good sign, and the charts are reflecting that buying pressure.
Absolutely. We saw a golden cross confirmed back in April.
Which is that classic bullish signal, the 50-day moving average crossing above the 200-day.
Correct. And then the stock broke out above that $3 resistance level with a bullish Rec-RD crossover. It all points to sophisticated investors getting in position ahead of that August regulatory news.
Okay, so that is a very compelling bull case. Unique science, great data, enough cash, and an accelerated FDA path. Let's play devil's advocate. What's the bear case? What could derail this whole thing?
The primary risk is, and always is, the regulator. The FDA could still reject the NDA. They could say the existing data isn't quite enough and demand a larger traditional phase 3 trial.
Which would be a disaster for the timeline and the cash.
It would be a major blow, yes. The other risk is just a simple delay. If that filing slips past Q4 2025, they might be forced to raise capital, which means dilution.
And what about the data itself? You mentioned the subgroup analysis coming in July.
Right. If that data looks soft, let's say it shows the drug didn't work well in a big group like late-onset Alzheimer's patients, that could erode confidence and make the FDA demand more work. So that July data is a key checkpoint.
It really feels like the next 3 months are everything for this company. So when you look at the risk versus the reward, what is the market telling us right now with its valuation?
Well, the current valuation seems to be pricing in a pretty high probability of failure, which is, pretty standard for a small biotech. It suggests the downside might be somewhat limited because a lot of the bad news is already baked in.
At the upside.
The upside is asymmetric. If they hit that August NDA submission, analyst price targets jump to the $5.50 to $7 range almost overnight.
So for you listening, ANVS Bio is sitting right on a critical inflection point. The science, with its unique dual pathway moat, is fundamentally different. That, combined with disciplined financials and a seemingly aligned FDA, sets up a huge high-stakes event in just a few weeks.
And there's a macro tailwind, too. The FDA is clearly showing more openness to non-amyloid drugs like this one. After all the controversy with the older antibodies, a new approach like this is, I think, very welcome.
That August NDA submission is the trigger to watch. We'll be tracking the subgroup data and every update along the way. Make sure you are subscribed for continued updates on ANVS Bio and other potential wealth catalysts.